Hello everyone, this is Colin once again. This is a video response going out to an individual here on YouTube. I'm pulling up his video right now so I can mention his screen name. He made a video response to my Ramadan 2011 Some Thoughts video. The username is Portland Hardstylers. And I'll just call you Portland for short if you don't mind. And I watched your video and I appreciate you making the response. I like your channel. I watched your first video, which is about 51 seconds, and I was entertained by that, and then realized that you says that you're in the Portland, Oregon area, and I've been to Portland myself, and I really enjoy Portland. But anyway, that's not the point of the video, but I enjoyed your video very much, and I thought that you made some really interesting points, and I was not envisioning a response like this. Not that that's a bad thing or anything. Not that I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But the topic you went with, but you responded in a very unique way, and I wasn't expecting a video response to that video, and not really in this context. Just to summarize for my viewers, so they know what we're talking about here. If you want to see Portland's video, I'll leave it in the description section of this video. Like I said, it's a response to my Ramadan 2011 video. And you're talking about in your video, I'm focusing on your conclusion, because you said it was really early in the morning when you made the video, so you were tired. I could tell you were tired, and at times it was difficult to understand exactly what you were saying at certain moments in the video. But I'm going to go with your conclusion. Your conclusion was that nonviolent social movements or doing nonviolent actions is outdated, and violent social movements or more aggressive social movements are the norm now to get your message across. But I think you said something that, however, if you go to like extremes, like what happened in Norway, I'm saying this, like what happened in Norway, your message looks repulsive to other people, and people aren't going to take you seriously anymore. So it's like, what are you going to do? I think that's what your conclusion was. I could be wrong about that, but I think you're asking me what I thought of that. Maybe I'm just too optimistic, but I would like to believe that nonviolent communication and nonviolent social movements, I would like to think that those things are not outdated. I think both, I'm a student of psychology, and I would think that both movements can be embodied in two archetypal images, or I don't want to say archetypal, but two individuals that represent two versions of movements. One, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. This might be cliche, but I bring them up because Malcolm X, of course, was not passive. He was not on the defensive. He was much more aggressive when it came to his views on social movements, whereas Martin Luther King Jr. was definitely more passive, and and certainly did not view it as a negative thing to have peace movements. Now, I think both versions of social movements come and go throughout history. If you look at the history of our species, there are moments when the more aggressive movements are the more acceptable, and the peaceful movements are the minority, and then the whole thing is flipped to the other side, where the aggressive movements are more acceptable and more expected than the peaceful movements. I think we are entering into a phase where the more aggressive movements and social movements are becoming the social norm. We're seeing this with the revolutions that are happening around the world, from the UK to Saudi Arabia. I mean, it's all over the place. How violent are they getting? How extreme are they getting? That of course is something that we can look at each individual movement, and that's something that needs to be considered when talking about those particular social movements. How extreme are they getting? If I were to talk about if you want to send a message, how are you going to send that message? And I think there is a huge difference between Anders Breivik and what he did in Norway, the Norway terrorist, what he did to send his message, and what people are doing in the UK, and that's even different from what's going on in Syria, and that's what's different what's going on in Egypt. Now, does that mean that peaceful, nonviolent communication and social movements are outdated? No, I think they're just in the minority. several decades ago, about maybe, I don't know, back in the 60s, you saw more peaceful demonstrations. I witnessed more peaceful demonstrations post 9/11, and also when the United States first invaded Iraq, there were more peaceful movements going on then, and now we're coming to this point where the pendulum is swinging again, and people are embracing a more aggressive, get out of your homes, fight with police, destroy property and things like this. There's a much more aggressive tone to some of these movements now than there were even within my own lifetime, and I'm only 22 years old. So I think it's a pendulum swing. I think humans at times think that a peaceful movement, like what we saw in the 60s with our history, with women's rights movements, the civil rights movements, sexual orientation movements, these things were primarily done in a peaceful, non-violent way, and they were successful. We know this. Now, it seems, because people are perceiving their governments as being harsh, they feel that being harsh is something that they need to do to get things done. Who's right and who's wrong, I really don't know. I think that they are, both of these versions of the same social movement are basically products of people's personalities. The introvert tends to look at the object outside of himself, and he tends to take it in and think of it as his own. The extrovert tends to look at the object as the object, and he as apart from the object. And I think that both of them create a product that's different from the other. And so I think this is just the nature of our species, is we do things differently. I think this is why, cliché-ly enough, as I admitted, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X tend to be compared when talking about social movements. Because one is a long tradition, with Gandhi. Dr. Martin Luther King was directly, influenced by Gandhi, and you've got people like the Dalai Lama, who stand up to oppression, or they engage in social movements on a peaceful level. But then you have people like Malcolm X, and you have people like what's happening again with in the Middle East. The protests were happening here in the United States with the workers against the unions. I mean, even though those didn't get violent or anything, but I mean, it just depends on each individual movement in each context. How aggressive is it? What are they saying? What is the movement's goals, etc.? And so, I wouldn't say that peaceful demonstration or nonviolent demonstration or nonviolent social movements, I don't believe it's outdated. I think that we as a collective species, I personally believe that not only is there a collective unconscious, but there's a collective consciousness as well. And we are very much connected on a psychological level, and I think that the pendulum swings back and forth depending on certain environmental situations. So I don't know if that was incredibly vague, but this is food for thought, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And like you said in your video, if you'd like to bring up some new points, by all means. So I hope we can keep this going, and I hope you're doing good. And to everyone watching, peace be with you all.